Ah, the world of board games. A fun way to pass the time. Now, for all of you people who didn't grow up playing board games, then let me give you a quick rundown on some of my personal favorites and also some not so favorite games. Monopoly, which is a pretty simple game in theory. The goal of the game is to basically own as much land as you can and not go bankrupt. Everyone on the board basically takes turns playing a certain object like the wheelbarrow or the dog and rolls some die which basically chooses your fate. Now, if you ask me, the best way to win Monopoly is probably to just buy everything you land on and force people to pay you money just for accidentally rolling a 5 and stepping foot on your land. The more land you own, the more people pay you for trespassing on your land, and with that money, you can buy more land. Until eventually, the other players on the board will be forced to sell their own land to even afford to eat food, while you sit back and watch as everyone else plummets into bankruptcy. There's also a few additional mechanics, like for example, collecting $200 when you pass go and going to jail by accidentally stepping on a dedicated jail tile. You could also try and bid on other people's land if they're selling them, but be careful, otherwise you might get scammed out of your luxurious properties. Monopoly is also owned by Hasbro and has multiple other Monopoly editions. Some honorable mentions include Fortnite Monopoly, Marvel Monopoly, and my all-time personal favorite, Scott the Woz Monopoly. No! This game is also famous enough that it has its own game in Roblox.
I'm gonna cry! I'm gonna cry! Shut! F this game, bro. F this game.
All in all, this game is pretty fun, but it's also heavily RNG based. But aside from that, it's a good game. Uno, which is technically a card game, not a board game, but I don't care, I'm adding this anyways. In my opinion, this is one of the best card games out there to play, with the only goal of the game being to run out of cards. Every player on the board starts with 7 or 6 cards and take turns placing them on the board. If you have 1 card left, you have to say Uno, otherwise you get 2 additional cards added to your deck. Now, this may all seem pretty boring, but if you're playing with friends, it becomes 100 times better. There are also some other cards to spice up the game, like the +2 card, the Uno reverse card, the skip card, the wild card, and the dreaded +4 card, which puts an immediate end to any relationship you have with a person who takes the hit.
Excuse me?
What?
What the f was that?
There are also additional rules that you may or may not use, like for example, stacking +2s on top of each other and saying Uno after you place the last card. Overall, Uno is a fun game, but be warned because this game has a tendency to end any friendship you have with the people you're playing against. Moving on to Jenga. Now, this game is pretty fun and pretty basic as well. You take turns taking pieces out of a tower, and if the tower falls, then you win. This game also needs massive concentration and sheer will in order for you to succeed, as any sudden movement with the pieces can cause the tower to unexpectedly just fall off, which will lead to you losing. But as long as you balance the pieces out, you should be fine. That's all I have to say. It's a pretty great game. Anyways, next game. Sorry. Now, this is one of the best games ever, because just like Uno, you can use it to take revenge on the people who have wronged you in the past. And yes, it literally says that on the box. But I do have to say one thing. If you play this game, then make sure to go in there prepared, because it gets pretty heated when you screw someone over when you draw that 11th card, or the dreaded sorry card, which is basically the equivalent of a +4 wild card and a huge middle finger. The goal of the game is that you have 4 of your own men of color, and your goal is to reach the home on the other side of the board by literally walking through the board and back to your side, which is pretty dumb, but that's how the game is played. Each player takes turns taking out cards from the middle, which decides your fate. Sometimes you get lucky and pick up a 10, but other times you get screwed over and end up picking up a card that says take 4 steps back. But there's also such thing as a sorry card, where you could basically switch places with anyone on the board. So if one of the red people is 1 move away from getting to their base, then you draw out that sorry card and absolutely switch places with them, knocking their piece back to square one. So bottom line is that Sorry is a great game. Just be careful with whoever you pick to play this game with, because, well, people like to take this game a lot more seriously than you think. Anyways, next game. Chess. Now, the gist of this is that it's a 2-player strategy making game, with the main goal being to make it so that the other side's king is checkmated, which basically means that it's pinned and can't move. But to achieve this goal, you must train yourself with multiple strategies and gambits, many of which are too complicated for someone with the untrained brain. Chess also comes with multiple game pieces, some of which better than others. There's the pawn, which can move once and attack diagonally, the knight or the horse, which can only move in L shapes, very good for sneaky kills. There's also a queen, which is the most powerful piece in the game, having the ability to basically move anywhere they want. And that's only mentioning some of the pieces. Needless to say, chess is unofficially the game used to test your IQ against someone else. Chess is also present in most social medias, which there being a dedicated chess website and a chess category on Twitch. Chess tournaments are also a thing that exist, which are pretty rare in a lot of board games. There are also different chess game modes, but my personal favorite is bullet chess, which is basically a game of chess except with a 1-minute timer. Just by that one sentence, I think you can tell how intense bullet chess games are. Anyways, chess is a pretty big board game, and I'm gonna move on because otherwise I'd be here talking all day. Clue. Personally, one of my favorite board games of all time. In Clue, you each each plays detectives racing against time to solve a crime scene, and also somehow have covers for last names. Before the game starts, usually 3 cards are placed in the center of the board, with them being the killer, the weapon, and the place. And whoever figures out those 3 cards before anyone else wins. Everyone is also given 4 cards from the deck and also a piece of paper to list down their findings. Everyone starts off at their own cover places and takes turns rolling 1 dice to see if they can get into rooms and start accusing people. Once someone makes it in the room, you can basically call an emergency meeting and accuse someone of being the killer and using a weapon. And everyone is forced to show their cards to see if they have the person, the place, or the weapon. You could also do a big brain high IQ play by showing someone a blank card to confuse all the other detectives. Overall, this game is pretty complicated, but it ends up being really fun when you play. Just beware though, because Miss Scarlet will always somehow end up being the killer in the end. Anyways, moving on to Scrabble. Now, this game is one of those word-related board games, but that's not to say it's a bad game. In Scrabble, each player gets 7 letters, and each have to take turns forming words on the board.
Yeet? What's a yeet?
Yeet.
All the letters are also given a specific number of points on how much they're worth. Like for example, common consonants like A and E are worth a measly 1 point, while other uncommon letters are worth a lot more like Q's, Z's, and X's. You also have to assign someone to keep track of points because there are a few tiles on the board with some special abilities. Some can double or triple the letter value, and some can double or triple the entire word. Scrabble is generally a pretty fun board game, unless if you're playing with a literal walking dictionary. You know, those guys who basically memorize every word in the dictionary, forming words you've never even heard of like xylem or zydeco. In Scrabble, there are also wild cards, or should I say wild tiles, which are tiles. Actually, they're just tiles. Plain blank tiles. They act as any letter in the alphabet, but award 0 points to whoever uses it. Anyways, everybody then takes turns forming new words and getting more letters until eventually there are none left and all of them have been used up. Overall, Scrabble is a fun game, but it might as well be titled Homework, the board game, patent pending. Anyways, let's move on. The Game of Life. Boy, what a fun board game this is. You basically play as these cars and go through your whole life, starting with school and getting a degree. You have to spin this wheel located at the center of the board, which is basically a fancier version of the classic dice. And whatever profession you get decides your salary every time you get paid. Or, you know, you could just skip this section entirely.
I'm never coming back to school, never!
Anyways, the first thing that you actually do is you get married and then force everyone to pay you $2,000 in wedding gifts. And then you have kids, which are pretty much just useless in the game. Occasionally, there are these tiles that say payday, which means that whenever you land on them or cross them, you get paid whatever your salary is, and also get a share the wealth card. There are 3 main share the wealth cards: the pay space cards, the collect space cards, and the exemption cards. The pay space cards allow you to split the cost of something with someone else by giving this card to them. The collect space cards allow you to take half of a player's earnings after they collect something. Hold on, did you just say your money? I think you meant our money. And the exemption cards are basically another way of saying, no, go mind your own business, stop trying to extort me out of my money. TM. There are also such things as revenge tiles, which you can use to either force someone to move back 10 spaces or force someone to pay you $300,000 up front. Eventually, everyone will reach the end of the board, and if you're still in debt by then you retire and become a philosopher, but if you're not in debt, then you retire and become a millionaire. And after that, each player counts their money, and whoever has the most by the end of the game wins. Overall, the Game of Life is a pretty nice game, and you can also use it to screw people over with the revenge tiles. So, plus points for that Game of Life. Good on you, you deserve it. Anyways, let's move on to the last board game on this list, which is Snakes and Ladders. Or Shoots and Ladders. Don't attack me in the comments. This board game is literally pure RNG. There is no skill involved, but it's still pretty fun though. The goal of the game is to reach the top before anyone else. You take turns rolling some dice, and wherever you land on the top 100 tiles could either be a snake or a ladder. Ladders allow you to climb onto them so you can reach the top faster. Snakes, on the other hand, bring you down a few levels. Anyways, Snakes and Ladders is a pretty simple game that can be basically played by anyone that, well, has hands. And for that, I love it. In conclusion, board games have been around ever since the dawn of time, and they have always served as great timeless sources of entertainment, with each board game being fun and unique in different ways. I hope you enjoyed this video, even though it's not a Diary of a Wimpy Kid video, which is basically the only thing people seem to watch on my channel. If this video does well, I'll make more videos with a similar style, but that's all for this video, which is basically just me talking non-stop about board games. In other words, it's hard to get bored of playing new board games every now and then, because no board game can bore me since there are no boring board games. Unless if you're playing Yahtzee.